There's a village of 40,000 people in Syria called Madaya, and Vice is reporting that Syrian forces and Hezbollah, who are aligned with the Syrian government, have been doing a crackdown there since July, and the effects are absolutely brutal. So they say the following, quote, "In the past month alone, 31 residents have died from starvation or in attempts to run the Hezbollah-manned blockade that encircles the town. 2 pounds of flour now retails for around $100, while the average Syrian makes less than $200 each month. People have resorted to literally eating leaves now to stay alive." They have pictures of this coming out of the area, and it's just absolutely gut-wrenching and heartbreaking to see that people in 2016 are living somewhere where they have so little food that they have to eat leaves just to try to stay alive. And you can see kids are basically bags of bones, and old people and kids are really in danger of starving. So the idea apparently is that by doing this brutal blockade, you starve people into submission. And they allude to the fact that this is a medieval tactic. So Vice continues here, quote, "Over the past 3 months, the Assad regime has prevented any additional shipments, essentially signing death warrants for dozens of children and elderly civilians in the coldest months of the winter. But there are also very practical reasons for the siege. Hezbollah is trying to trade the civilians in Madaya for the well-being of Shiite civilians under siege by rebel forces in the northern cities of Kafraya and Fua. Though the siege undoubtedly takes a humanitarian toll, multiple residents in Madaya told Vice News that fighters with Ahrar al-Sham are present in the town. The group fights with Al-Qaeda in the north of Syria." Okay, now this gets to the heart of the story, which is just how massively fucked Syria is at the moment, and how fucked it's been pretty much since the beginning of this civil war. They say, okay, well, Al-Qaeda and jihadists have Shia civilians under lockdown, and naturally they're treating them brutally in certain parts of Syria, and in other parts of Syria, Assad and Hezbollah and the Shia government and alliance have Sunni civilians, and they're being treated brutally in that area. And they're trying to broker a deal where they trade civilians, but apparently to this point, the deal has fallen through, so these people live in these hellish circumstances on both sides. You have people under Al-Qaeda control, naturally, not being treated right if you're Shia. In fact, I'm surprised they haven't just mass executed them, and other times they have mass executed them, but the remaining ones. And vice versa for how the Shias are apparently treating the Sunnis in this case. So it's a heartbreaking and terrible scenario. And, you know, I have to say, man, you guys know me. I'm a non-interventionist, and I'm fairly committed to that. So I only want to use our military in self-defense to protect the country. But civil wars, by and large, I want to stay out because it's a civil war. You know, what are you going to do? Pick sides in a fight that has nothing to do with you? That's like you see a bar fight at the end of the bar from two people you never met before. You're like, yeah, let me jump in and help guy X. You don't fucking know that guy. What are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. That makes no sense. So, but in this case, with the pictures coming out of there and whatnot, I'm not for military intervention. But if I was the UN, would I try to fly by and drop, you know, goods and food and whatever, medical products for these people? Oh, absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. I know it's difficult. Because you don't know, you know, what kind of abilities they have, and who would be a danger to you. Would the Syrian forces be a danger to you? Would Hezbollah be a danger to you? Would, you know, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, who are also in Syria in different areas, are they going to be a danger to you? Well, yeah, we've seen a massive increase in execution of aid workers and journalists recently from that side. So I know it's a hard thing, and maybe I'm just, you know, being too idealistic and naive here. But what are you going to do? Let people starve? Is that what you're going to do? And see, this is an example of a time where it's not like the best use of Western power or international power is let's send somebody in there with a gun and kill people and possibly even kill civilians. No, oftentimes that breeds more resentment, and oftentimes, like I said, you're intervening in a situation that's complicated and you have no right or shouldn't intervene in it. But this is a time where the UN and the international community, if they dropped food, I would absolutely support it. Now, understand, though, as well, there's a lot of propaganda that comes out of Syria today, and it really is hard to get valid information. But in this case, I feel comfortable reporting this to you because they have Vice reporters on the ground there, so I'm much more inclined to believe it. But always be skeptical when reading almost anything about Syria today, because there's this new trick that a lot of groups do where they take a name that sounds like a legit international human rights group, and they name themselves that, but then when you dig deeper, you find out they're indeed not a human rights group. And in the case of Syria, they're almost always massively biased in favor of the rebels, to the point where they paint a rosy picture of Islamist rebels and sometimes jihadist rebels. So you have to be careful with where you get your information from, and one of the key ones to look out for is the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Red flag on any information that comes from them. But in this case, since it's reported by Vice and they have people on the ground, I feel comfortable reporting it to you. So it's a gross situation, and it's a reminder that in the year 2016, we're still seeing stuff like this. And whether it's here in Syria or it's in North Korea with their literally Nazi-like conditions, evil exists in the world, and we should be aware.